The piercing shriek cut through the hum of the grocery store like a knife, jolting everyone within earshot. "What idiot hired this retard in the express line?" A woman's voice bellowed, her finger jabbing accusingly at a young cashier with Down syndrome who stood frozen behind the register, his hands trembling as he tried to scan a loaf of bread. The store, usually a place of mundane routine, transformed in an instant into a stage for humiliation, the fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows over the scene. Customers paused, some averting their eyes, others whispering in discomfort. But no one stepped forward until a tall figure in a dark suit emerged from the aisle, his presence commanding yet understated. It was Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana, his steely gaze fixed on the unfolding drama, his jaw tightening with a quiet fury that hinted at the storm brewing beneath his calm exterior. The cashier, Ethan, was only 22, a gentle soul who had worked tirelessly to earn this job at the local supermarket. His mother, Claire, a single parent who had fought tooth and nail to give him opportunities, had tears in her eyes as she watched from the back of the store, torn between rushing to his defense and shielding him from further shame. Ethan's wide smile, usually a beacon of warmth, had vanished, replaced by a look of confusion and hurt as the woman, middle-aged with a sharp bob and a designer handbag, continued her tirade. "This is ridiculous! I'm in a hurry and you're holding up the line!" she snapped, her voice dripping with impatience. The other customers shifted uncomfortably, some pulling out their phones to record, but the weight of the moment pressed down on Ethan, who stammered, I'm sorry, ma'am. I'll try harder." John Kennedy, a man known for his folksy wisdom and unyielding sense of justice, couldn't stand by. He approached the counter with deliberate steps, his polished shoes clicking against the linoleum floor. "Ma'am," he drawled, his southern accent thick but his tone firm. "I reckon you've got no call to talk to this young man like that. He's doing his best, and that's more than I can say for some folks who ought to know better." The woman turned, her face flushing with indignation. "And who are you to butt in? This is none of your business," she retorted. But Kennedy's calm demeanor didn't waver. He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "I'm someone who believes in treating people with respect, no matter who they are, and I'd suggest you reconsider. Your words before this gets uglier than a mud fence." The confrontation drew a small crowd, and Claire finally pushed through, her maternal instinct overriding her hesitation. "That's my son you're yelling at," she said, her voice breaking, as she stood beside Ethan, placing a protective arm around his shoulders. "He works harder than anyone here, and he doesn't deserve this." Ethan looked up at his mother, his eyes glistening, and murmured, "I just wanted to do a good job, Mom." The woman's expression faltered for a moment, but her pride kept her defensive. "Well, he should be trained better," she muttered, crossing her arms. Kennedy, sensing the emotional toll on Ethan and Claire, decided to take action. He turned to the store manager, who had appeared nervously at the edge of the scene, and said, "Sir, I'd like to have a word with you about how you support your employees, especially ones like Ethan here who show real grit." The manager, wiry man named Mr. Hargrove, nodded quickly, clearly eager to defuse the situation. "Of course, Senator. Let's step into my office." But before they could move, Kennedy addressed the crowd. "Y'all see this young man? He's got more heart than half the politicians in Washington. Let's give him a hand for trying." A smattering of applause broke out, hesitant at first, then growing stronger, lifting Ethan's spirits just enough to muster a small, grateful smile. In the manager's office, Kennedy didn't mince words. "Ethan's a credit to this store, but he needs backup when folks like that woman come along. Maybe some sensitivity training for your staff or a sign that says, 'We stand by our employees.'" Mr. Hargrove, chastened but motivated, agreed. To implement a new support program, including a buddy system for new hires like Ethan. Meanwhile, outside, the woman's attitude began to crack as a teenage girl in the crowd, inspired by Kennedy's words, stepped forward. "My brother has Down syndrome too," she said softly. "He's the kindest person I know. Maybe you should think about that." The woman's face reddened, and she muttered an apology before storming off, leaving her groceries behind. The resolution came swiftly but with lasting impact. Kennedy spent a few minutes with Ethan and Claire, offering words of encouragement. "You keep your head up, son," he said, shaking Ethan's hand. "The world needs more people like you." Claire, tears streaming, now thanked him profusely. "You didn't have to do this, but you did. It means everything." The store manager announced over the intercom that Ethan would receive a small raise and a Employee of the Month plaque, a gesture that brought cheers from the staff. The video of the incident, posted online by a bystander, went viral, with Kennedy's defense of Ethan sparking a wave of support. Donations poured in for a local charity aiding people with disabilities, and Ethan's story inspired hundreds to share their own experiences. As the dust settled, Ethan stood a little taller behind his register, his confidence bolstered by the community's embrace. Claire watched with pride, knowing her son had faced a challenge and come through stronger. Kennedy, slipping out quietly, left behind a legacy of compassion that rippled far beyond the store's walls. The message was clear. Kindness and courage can turn a moment of cruelty into a beacon of hope, reminding everyone that every person deserves respect, no matter the obstacles they face. For Ethan, it was the start of a new chapter, one where he knew he was valued, and for the world watching, it was a call to stand up, just as John Kennedy had, for what's right.